Hello, 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 and welcome to Awaken Your Inner Whole Woman podcast. I am delighted you're here. I know it's not by chance that our paths have crossed, whether this is the very first time or you've been on this journey with me for a while. Welcome to this space where I know you're here because you are wanting to awaken. You want to awaken to the truth of who you are. You want to awaken to consciousness. You want to awaken to healing, to transformation, however you might describe that. What I know what we have in common is that we're both on a path of awakening. And I am delighted that you have joined to listen in this particular episode because we are going to talk about something that many people have thoughts about, have questions about. It's probably the number one question that we all want to know is, why am I here? Why am I here? What is my purpose? And we're going to dive into this conversation about purpose and calling and see where you see yourselves. And I have a special guest that is going to be joining, has already joined us in this conversation. And I look forward to she and I just speaking to this and seeing where it leads us. So, Justina Ford is here. I'm delighted that you're here. Please introduce yourself to the audience. Let us know who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I am a veteran Army veteran spouse, to make sure I say that right. And then I'm also a homeschooling mother. I'm a worship leader at my church. First and foremost, a child of God, daughter of the Most High. And then in my to-dos, I would say that I'm a professional makeup artist. I've been in the beauty industry for woo, 13, 14 years. It's been quite a while. And then I'm also in the coaching industry where I focus in on mindset and healing, personal development, spiritual development, all of those type of things. So that is the nature of the work that I do.
Wow, wow. And I feel so um, intrigued when we talk because I learned something new about you. Our paths crossed, and I see as we learn of each other why, right? Why our paths crossed at this season in our lives. Because we do very similar work and we do it in very similar ways. So thank you for being a part of the podcast. We're going to jump into this conversation. We started it earlier and they just now get to eavesdrop on some of the things that we talked about. But I'm
Yeah.
curious, given your work, given your experience, how do you define purpose? Like, what is that? Because many people have that question.
Yes. Wow. I will say it has been like a journey, lots of years of like trying to figure out, okay, what's my purpose? What's my purpose? Why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing? And like kind of connecting purpose to doing. And I feel like that was like a really big mistake, I'll say, kind of like leading me down like so many different paths on purpose. And it wasn't until I was reading scripture and I'll be really honest, I'm not good at quoting scripture, but it lives in my heart. So I remember reading a scripture that talked about my purpose, and my purpose was to give God thanks. And I was just like, oh, shoot, all this time. I think I've been making this more difficult than what it really is. Like, God created me, and it's to give Him thanks, give Him glory through whatever I do. And then I met this woman. Her name is Sarah Thiessen, and she actually teaches on like purpose and calling and all this stuff. And she teaches some other things too. We may get into it, but she was talking about our calling. And I love how wide she kind of made it. She kind of talked about like a pizza with different slices, and you have a slice and you get to live within that slice. So it doesn't necessarily have to be something that's so like specific and like just this one thing. So I tend to look at purpose and calling as two different things. And then even in calling, I see a big C calling, especially if
Mm,
you are a woman of faith, a Christian. Like we all have a calling to spread the gospel and tell people about Jesus and all of that. However, there's a little C calling, right? Where
mhm,
it is your personal calling, that thing that you know that God designed you for.
mhm.
There's certain gifts and talents and experiences and maybe education or things that you've pursued in life, not because other people told you to do it, but because it was a genuine interest. I feel like that lives in the realm of calling. So,
Mm.
yeah, that's my
I
thoughts around purpose and calling.
No, I love it because what you said is so important. We get tied up on what we do. And I think I have seen that we categorize things as more important, less important. And so when we find that maybe my purpose, as we would tend to define that, is to bring joy to people, right? We might think that feels smaller than someone who has a what we can define as a bigger purpose. But you're saying we have a similar purpose. If we were to really look at it, it's pretty common. It's pretty similar amongst us all. And then there are different unique callings within how we live or what we do as we live. I'm wondering how freeing was that for you?
Oh my goodness. I think I may have been in my, excuse me, my mid 20s, late 20s when I came to that epiphany of like this purpose. It doesn't have to be like this one specific thing that you do. It's more of like almost like a theme or a banner that's over your life of what you stand for, so to speak. And that purpose piece, I think when I found that first, of okay, God, I'm here to give you thanks and give you glory, lots of freedom in that. Because I could look around me and say, okay, God, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the things I see in nature. I'm grateful for the things I see in people. I'm grateful for what you've done. I can give you thanks and praise in those things. So I got to kind of live in that realm. It took a lot of stress off. And then I believe those natural interests began to reveal themselves. And there are even certain difficult moments in my life where I was on one path, like I was studying psychology and I was getting my master's in human service counseling. And I had a shift and a move where I moved internationally overseas to South Korea. And that kind of put a halt in some things because my husband's military. So it's like,
Mhm.
you feel like you come up against these barriers and you're like, wait, I thought I was going on my path. I thought I was, fulfilling the calling. And God's like, no, I'm going to show you something a little bit different. So he brought me
Mhm.
back to childhood passions. And I
Mhm.
love to ask people that, like, when you were a kid, what was it that you loved or things like interests that you had? Because there weren't those barriers, there weren't those people telling you you can or can't do those things. It's almost like a natural thing. And I
Mhm.
remember when I had told my mom, I was probably like 15, 16, and even at 13, 14, 15, I was always helping people do their hair, putting makeup on their face, all that kind of stuff. Before even knowing that was like an industry that I would even find myself in. But by the time I hit like 17, I had whispered like real quiet. I was like, Mom, I think I want to go to cosmetology school. And it was like really quickly like shut down. No, you're going to get a 4-year degree. You're going to college. I was the first person to go to college, in my family. So it's just ironic how like when I went to Korea, there was a break and a pause in the thing that I was pursuing. And that definitely was because my family told me, like, I was a very obedient child. I did what my parents told me to do. And then when I went to South Korea, there were all these opportunities to volunteer in a theater and do makeup and all this stuff.
Mhm.
So sometimes we connect our purpose and call to money also, and it's
Mhm.
crazy because I was just volunteering and I was just serving and I was feeling happy and joyous. And like I'm getting reconnected to the thing that I had originally wanted. And I'll say I believe God gave me that experience because there's no way that I could have stepped into that psychology, inner healing, and like helping women find freedom and go back to their passions and the things that they have desired all along if I didn't have that opportunity to tap into that first, to live
Mhm.
that and walk that out. Because it
Right.
made no sense for me to have a whole master's degree and then going back and being a freelance makeup artist.
Mhm.
People literally laughed in my face, like,
Wow.
and joked and had sarcastic remarks like, you got a whole master's degree. What are you doing? Why are you doing that?
Wow.
Volunteering in a theater doing makeup. But I think another important thing is our values, like the things that we value. Do you value authenticity? Do you value your passion? Do you value the truth of like your desires and the things that interest you? Do you value operating in alignment? Because
Mhm.
when I was in that space, it felt so aligned, but it did not make sense because I wasn't getting paid. Like,
Right.
you ain't getting paid, sister. But ironically enough, after like the third show, the company said, hey, we have a budget and we
Mhm.
want to pay you. And the
Wow.
whole time I had never in my brain thought I could even get paid for this type of work.
Wow.
So that's God. He's doing that. He's making those connections. He's putting that on the hearts of people. So it's never easy to walk in your calling. There's always a price you're going to
Mhm.
have to pay to walk in that calling, but are you willing to pay the price? And that was part of my journey. Even in homeschooling my kids,
Mhm.
that was something that I felt called to do, to educate my children. So it's not always in our own personal doing or career wise. That calling can be in the way you live your life
Right.
also. And I see home educating as a lifestyle. That was a lifestyle in which education is a lifestyle. Like this, just that whole aspect of things. So when it comes to calling, again, I think bigger than just doing. I think bigger than just money. I really look at it as a lifestyle and authenticity and how we show up and how we present ourselves. So, yeah.
Yes, yes. And I love how you explained what you thought was getting off the path, quote unquote, was actually leading you to the path, where you talked about the path of going to pursue a degree. And then you went to what seemed to be an opposite pathway, but it was all interconnected because it helps you to do the work that you currently do. I just love that because I think so many people have this idea, oh, I'm on the wrong path. I don't think you are on the wrong path. That path is leading you exactly where you're going and what you need in order to get there. So thank you for sharing that. And then this idea of my purpose isn't what I am doing. You're saying it, and I love that because for me, it's an embodiment. It's who I am.
Mm,
My purpose oozes out of me. My purpose is in my presence. It's in my voice. It's in my way of being. And when we embody that, it takes the pressure of off of doing it a certain way. If you're not doing that thing, you feel like I'm not operating in my purpose or calling. But it's not that. It's a way of being. So, do you help clients? Because I know you also now do the work that you're talking about. Is this a part of what you implement in the work that you do?
yes, yes. I'll say when I was doing the makeup, I was doing makeup in the boudoir industry, like photography and all of that. And then I ended up in doing some for TV and film and working with actors and all that kind of stuff. And being a makeup artist, technically, you're like a therapist. Like you have people in your chair, they're talking to you, they're sharing things with you, and you're having a whole space, you're holding space with them. What they say, like the makeup room is like the secret room where like all the truths and the gossip comes out and all that kind of stuff. But I keep it clean in the makeup room. I'm not the guy. I don't get into all the gossip, but the secrets and the truth of what's in your heart, right? So
Mhm.
I would be hearing women like talk about, they're asking me what I do and how I got into this, and then we get into their life and how they're operating and what they're doing and all of that. So it was one of those things where I could sense that, wait a second, I need to have another aspect of what I'm doing. Yes, I love this makeup work, but I want to go deeper. And it actually connected me back to the degree, the education. And I was like, oh man, there was a place for that. I just
Mhm.
didn't know where it would fit back in. Right. So
Mhm.
those, psychology skills and social emotional skills and blah, 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 all that served me well um, while I have the clients in the chair. So I think your question was, how did I help them or what was it that we were doing? It really was having them sit and think about their lives. Like, what are you doing now that's connecting you to the life that you truly want to live? Something that I used to share with women is really about taking the things that are on paper. Because I believe that women, they're journaling, they're writing, they're whispering those little secrets down on paper. And it's like, how do you take those little things off paper and manifest them into reality? Live out those desires. So when you sit in my chair and I'm hearing about you struggling in a relationship that you know is not serving you, or you're in a job that is sucking the life out of you, right? Or you're wanting to experience some level of strength and health, and you're not giving yourself permission to operate in that. like the all the different domains of life. I when I hear those things, I'm like, man, I want to help you have freedom from that. I want to help you break free from that.
Right.
And I ended up going into some additional studies, which I mentioned my mentor, Sarah Thiessen. She is the author of the book, Redeeming Energy Psychology for the Kingdom of God. So I
Mhm.
started reading that book and learning about how emotions and memories and certain traumatic events that we experience, they get stored in our body.
Mhm.
And that's why a woman can come and sit in my chair and talk about all the things that she desires, but she's not necessarily moving toward those things. So it really is about movement. And I'm really grateful for my experiences because I would say I'm the multi-passionate queen. I've probably done everything out there from waitressing to leasing agent to life insurance agent to topless dancer to like all the things. So when I see all these different pieces that I've been able to step into and realize those are not me,
Mhm.
doing all those things are not me. Really about the values and how I've chosen to live my life and the sacrifices that I've made to get closer to creating impact and creating value. I think those are the biggest pieces. And it's hard to do those, create impact and value and all those things when you're unsatisfied with your own life and you can only see yourself and only look at what you got going on. Right. So I
Right.
want to move people past that point of woe is me, queen of like I know I have my days even still to this day where I'll even shift into a victim mode, but you best believe we're shifting out of it quickly. But
Mhm.
when we stay in those places, we cannot be of that purpose that we have on the inside of us, that calling that we have on the inside of us. I feel like there's almost like a lampshade over it
Right.
because we're not actually doing the inner work that we need to do to shift through our things and then to be able to outwardly, help and support and make a difference in the world. So, yeah.
Right. Right. No, which I think is a part of the calling that you're speaking to. And you're right. When we have emotional experiences, trauma, things that get in the way, it dims our light, right? Essentially, from being able to really do what it is we are to do or be who it is we're supposed to be. And so you brought up a word that I'd love to talk more about as it relates to the book and the work that you do with energy healing. Not a term that many people may know of or understand or maybe have misconceptions around. How will you describe that? How will you put it in words?
Yes. When I think of, okay, when with energy, I always say this: if you walk into a room where people were just arguing, like a couple. They just got a knockdown, drag out argument, and you walk into that room and they've only shut it off because another presence came in. You're going to feel the thickness of the room.
Mhm.
So when I think of energy, that's what I'm thinking about. Like, what is that? How do you move and which energy are you moving and making decisions and creating and all of that. Because the big part of this is like we all have to make like how many decisions a day? I don't remember the
Mhm.
number. There's probably like thousands of decisions that we're making each day. And then we're trying to create the life we want and desire. What is
Mhm.
the energy in which we do that? And if we're operating, one of the things about energy too is I think about emotions. Emotions have frequency, they hold weight. So, and then we have, that emotional regulation piece is so important into making sound decisions and then creating from a space of authenticity, with lightness and not that heaviness. And then you throw the psychology on there, and hopefully people get that too. So that's what my whole idea with energy psychology, how those things come together to be able to really process your feelings, process your emotions, see the connections between how you behave, how you act, um, how you're feeling stagnant or stuck, and get to the roots of where that comes from. Because there's
Mhm.
something that took place in your life where you're still living in the energy of that thing and it's showing up today. So that's how I would explain energy psychology.
Yes. And I think it's so helpful to know that because we just live, right? We just move from moment to moment, day to day, not conscious of energy and what it means. I mean, and you're right. Like there are times, and depending on how sensitive you are to it, you can walk in a space and know if there was like excitement there. I think about like a basketball game, right? People are gone, but you still feel the excitement. It's just like, what's here? Or other experiences, I have been to a lacrosse game I remember recently, and they started fighting, and I could feel the tension come into the space from the players fighting. So I think you're giving examples of that, but we know of so many other ways that this shows up. And I think in the work you do, and I want you to talk a little bit more about it, we understand that those emotions get stuck in the body. And I certainly believe that, have seen that. How does that look, and how do you help people through that in your work?
Yeah. Um, with emotions getting stuck in the body, I literally had a 2-hour session right before this. So I have like an idea in my mind, working with a particular client where there have been so many different frustrations in her life. And I mean, if you can think of a child that has had to take on the responsibility of the adults in their lives to the point where like they're riding a public school bus for almost 2 hours just to get to school because no one is there to get them there, right? And not the school bus. I'm talking about public transportation with adults and other people. Like that's scary. When I think about my
Mhm.
child having to do something like that, it breaks my heart. And but that's just one example of like the weight and the heaviness that this and the frustrations in their life that they've had to deal with over and over and over. However, being the resilient person that this person is, it's almost like this pendulum swing in a sense where it's like, I'm not going to become a victim and I'm not going to fall prey to all of these different setbacks and frustrations. But what I'm going to do is become self reliant and I'm going to make it happen no matter what.
Mhm.
Right. So then
Right.
it's like, oh, how is that playing out now in your business, in the way you operate as an entrepreneur? And in this case, it is no team,
Mhm.
doesn't know how to ask for help,
Right.
feels guilty when they ask for help because they're so used to doing it themselves. And those frustrations, they've never even fully connected with them. They
Mhm.
didn't even realize it was a frustration. It's just stuff I deal with. So
Mhm.
now in the present, when they deal with these frustrations, it's almost as if they live in the energy of frustration. And that's the only way they know how to operate so that they can re-energize that power and that knowing that I can handle this and I'm going to do it myself. So it's like this little cycle
Right.
situation, right? So I'm sharing that to say, okay, now what do we do about that? How do we break this cycle? In the work that I do, which is called Splunkna therapy. And Splunkna is Splankna for those who are like, what the heck is that word? And it's Greek for gut. What we're able to do is something called theme work. And in the theme work, we're able to find something called bookends. When did these events start, these frustrations? When did they have the most impact on you? And when did those frustrations end? But yet now you're operating in the symptoms of it. So we're able to
Mhm.
capture these bookends. And we'll just, for the sake of an example, say age 15 to 30.
Mhm.
So our Holy Spirit will whisper those ages to me, and I'll be, oh, okay, cool. We got the bookends, 15 to 30. And then however many events that all share the same emotions, it could be
Mhm.
50 events, it could be 100 events. We can grab the emotions from every single one of those events that they share, and we can help our clients release those emotions from their body. I love theme work because, in one sense, if a person comes and they want to talk about each one of those events, it could take a long
Mhm.
time to try to process every single one of them. And sometimes my clients do. They're like, I'm like, we don't have to talk about all of them. We could talk about a couple, we'll do that.
Mhm.
But then I have to like, let's clear them. Let's get them out of the body. So we
Mhm.
know where, based on science and research about the meridian lines and where emotions are stored in the
Mhm.
body. If
Right.
anyone wants to read Molecules of Emotion by Candace Pert, all that good stuff, we know where the emotion, I'm even looking at a chart right here with like where all the emotions are stored in the body. So we can go there through um, touch, thought, and circuitry, those things coming
Mm,
together to then release the emotions from the body. And that's the work that I was doing right before getting on this call with you and finding all those emotions that are stored in those events. Then not only finding those emotions and releasing them, but this is a key part, finding the benefit. There's
mm.
something that you're getting out of operating that way,
Yes.
some way in which it is serving you. It's a twisted way,
Right.
that you're being
Maladaptive.
served. Yes,
Hmm.
maladaptive. And we want to find that too. And we want to clear that. And we want to come out of agreement with that. And then, because I love the spiritual side of things, for those that are listening, I know some people make, if you're not a Christian or believer, you may call it shadow work. I'm learning about these things. I'm like, oh, is that what they're calling it? Shadow work. And shadow work is talking about the darkness. This is where you're talking about demonic entities, demonic things that are attached to the agreement that you actually made. So we want to go in and break agreement with those things and clear out the legal right because you've come in agreement with it. And we do that through revoking and renouncing and forgiveness and confession and all those different pieces. So it's a beautiful combination of the mind body work, the psychology, processing the stuff, and then also going into the spiritual components as well. So the protocol of Swankna therapy is what we would be using to help women, men, people in general who want to shift out of these type of behaviors or ways of being that are actually blocking them from moving into their purpose and moving into their calling. So
Right. Yes. I love that. I love that you took the time to explain that because I know even the listeners are thinking, what, how does this work? What does this look like? And helping us to see that sometimes this is why you say, I don't know why I keep doing X, Y, and Z, right? Like you have it in the logical mind, but something is blocking you and you can't move forward. And so, what you're explaining is that process that you take your clients through to clear all of that stuff so that they can live and be who they were intended to be. I love
mhm.
it. I love it. I'm all about personal development and inner healing work. So, all of my neurons are firing
Mhm.
because it's such important work. So, for those that are listening, she has given insight into it. They may be thinking at this point, like, how do I connect with her? Like, what is the ways to stay connected with you? Please share with the audience.
Yes. My business name is Soulfully Aligned You. And I want to share on that too, because recently someone asked, they were like, why did you call your business Soulfully Aligned You? Why are you trying to align with the soul? And I'm like, no, that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to get
Mhm,
the soul in alignment with the Father. So I'm
mhm,
speaking from a state that I already see you at, soulfully
mhm,
aligned with the Father. So this is you being aligned with the Father. So with your Creator, right? The one that created you, the one that says that he came to prosper you and not to harm you. All of that, that you're a masterpiece, right? So, soulfully align you is really about getting the soul, the will, the emotions, thoughts, all of that in alignment with truth. And
mhm,
that's what we get to do when we clear out all of these stuck emotions that are just that energy, that stagnant energy is what I like to call it. That's just stuck. And so, yeah, Soulfully Align You. I am on Instagram. You can put in at Soulfully Align You. I'm on Facebook at Soulfully Align You. And lately, I've been doing a lot more of my content sharing and all of that on my personal Facebook page, which probably isn't a good thing, but I just do it anyways. And
it
that
works.
is
Mhm.
right. So, but the crazy part is my husband and I share a Facebook page, and I have not changed the name of it. So it would be Justina, the letter N, Travis Ford. So some people think my middle name is Travis, which is okay. I love him so much. I don't mind that being my middle name. But yeah, you can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram. And then my website is just justinaford.com. So Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Wow. I paused to add that because I could feel that someone is thinking, how do I connect? This sounds really interesting in the work that you do.
Mhm,
Share with us as we're coming close to the end of our time today.
mhm,
Share anything else you think the listeners would want to know or need to know or is on your heart to share as it relates to
mhm.
purpose calling, as it relates to being healed of the things that are keeping us stuck. What would you want to share?
Yeah, I think that oftentimes we talk about healing, 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 healing all the time. I know in my world, that's what we talk about. You got to heal this and you got to heal that. But I love the idea of creative work. And this
Mm,
is like capacity building. So, the same way that we're releasing emotions, we also want to like download the frequency of the thing that we desire, also. And
mhm,
that to me is so beautiful because sometimes we weren't equipped with the thing, like in our childhood, through our growing up, all of we may not have been equipped with this emotion or this capacity or this skill set. And the beauty of creative work, which is something that we get to do in this protocol as well, is that you may come in and you may have been working with a therapist, a psychotherapist, all that beautiful stuff, and you've done all this healing work, but now God is like, it's time to build capacity for
mm,
where I want you to be. And we have a peak performance algorithm where what I love about this is that I don't know if anyone has heard the study of like the athletes where they do mental rehearsal and that
mm,
betters their performance, right? Not just the physical doing, but it's the actual visualization and the mental rehearsal. Take for example a baseball player who's trying to hit that strikeout, right? He will mentally rehearse that and that helps his performance. So it's the same thing where we have an algorithm, and this is video, so I guess I can show you what that algorithm looks like. Oops, I don't have it right in front of me, but it's forms of tapping. And I
mm,
believe this is actually it, like under the arm, the eyes, the collarbone, and then you go into your triple warmer, which are your bilateral eye, stimulation of the eyes and all
simulation.
that. Yes. So the peak performance algorithm is something that I love because we're combining mental rehearsal, which is
Mhm,
the visualization and the imagination, which I believe the
mhm.
imagination is a gift from God and we
Right,
want to steward it well.
right,
So
right.
we're imagining, what does he say? Think on these things that are good and lovely and pure and all of that. So we're taking that concept, the mental rehearsal, plus the body work, right? The mind and the body coming together to think about what it would look like when you reach that goal. What is it going to
Mhm,
feel like when you reach that goal? So I love, I got to do that work today with a client. We're taking her through that algorithm. And when she was doing that, some other things came up, right? Even though we're
mhm,
having her focus on the positive, then it was like, oh, my time management.
mm,
That's a thing. I've got to focus on my discipline. It was like all the pieces that she's needing to get to that point is now coming up to the surface for her. So I love it. I love the idea of creative work
mm.
and healing work kind of working in tandem. So that would be something I wanted to just add in there.
Absolutely. And I love the reframe, right? Because sometimes when we think, oh, I have to do more healing, it can feel daunting. But to add in
Mhm.
this creativeness, add in this kind of imagination. And I love it because I love the scripture that says you'll do more than you can ask, think, or imagine, right? So this unlimited capacity in our imagination is so powerful that as adults we lose sense or touch with, but kids are so in tune with that kind of imaginative mind.
Mhm.
So I appreciate that you shared that, bringing a different perspective to that, that someone can feel like, you know what, I choose to do more creative work because I know there's so much more to who I am and so much more to what I have to give to the world. So thank you so much, Justina, for being here, sharing your experience, your personal experience, your professional experience, your journey. And I know as it continues to go, more and more will unfold for you. And then those who are listening, you are at a point in your life, right? This isn't the end. This is just where you are. Where you are doesn't identify who you are. It's just where you are. And when you take in that idea, we understand calling and purpose better. We understand moving through emotional blocks, spiritual blocks, to really stand into the fullness of who we are. So I am so delighted that you were here. Until the next episode, see you then. Bye for now.